Angela Carter stood at the glass entrance of Horizon Consulting's lobby, staring at the downpour hammering São Paulo's streets, and reached into her bag for the third time that minute. Nothing. Her fingers scraped the bottom. Keys, wallet, half-eaten protein bar, loose receipts, a tangle of charging cables. But no umbrella. Again. She let out a laugh, sharp and bitter, the kind that comes when you're too tired to be surprised by your own patterns. The kind that comes when you've stopped expecting anything from yourself, except exhaustion. A woman in heels sprinted past her, newspaper held overhead, splashing muddy water across Angela's beige pants. She didn't even turn back. Didn't apologize. Just kept running, like everyone in this city, like everyone in this building. Always did. Angela wiped her calf with the sleeve of her bomber jacket, feeling the grit of street water on the fabric, and calculated the distance to the bus stop. 30 seconds if she ran full speed. She'd be soaked, hair plastered to her face, makeup ruined, but she'd make the 5:47 p.m. bus. The alternative was waiting another 20 minutes in wet clothes, shivering under the building's inadequate awning, while colleagues she barely knew rushed past with their perfectly organized lives and their perfectly packed umbrellas. She took a breath, bracing herself for the cold shock of rain. "Do you need one?" The voice came from her left, low and unhurried, cutting through the sound of rain hammering pavement. She turned. Ethan Park stood 3 feet away, black backpack slung over one shoulder, holding a black umbrella in his right hand. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't doing that thing men do when they offer help and expect applause, that performance of chivalry that always comes with a price tag attached. He just offered. Simple. Direct. Like he was asking if she wanted the last coffee in the break room, not rescuing her from her own perpetual disorganization. Angela hesitated, pride and practicality warring in her chest. "Then you won't have one." Ethan shifted the backpack off his shoulder with an easy motion, unzipped the side pocket with his free hand, and pulled out a second umbrella. Navy blue. Compact. Still wrapped in its plastic sleeve, the price tag dangling from the handle. "I brought 2, he said simply, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. Angela stared at the blue umbrella, at him, at the umbrella again. Her brain tried to process the logistics. Who carries 2 umbrellas? Who plans for someone else's failure? Who notices that kind of pattern in a coworker they barely speak to? No one did this. No one anticipated her. She reached out slowly, fingers closing around the plastic-wrapped handle. The material crinkled under her touch, loud in the space between them. "Thank you," she said, and her voice came out smaller than she intended, almost childlike. Ethan nodded once, a brief dip of his chin, turned toward the opposite crosswalk, and disappeared into the rain with his black umbrella open above him. She watched him go, watched the rain bounce off the dark fabric, watched him navigate the puddles with careful steps, and felt something she couldn't name settle in her chest. Angela stood frozen under the building's awning for 5 more seconds, feeling the weight of the folded umbrella in her palm like it was something alive. Something that asked a question she didn't know how to answer. Why did he have 2? She pushed through the glass door and tore open the plastic sleeve, her fingers clumsy with cold and confusion. The umbrella opened smoothly, well made, the navy fabric taut and clean. The rain drummed against it as she crossed the street, her sneakers splashing through shallow puddles that reflected the gray sky above. On the bus, pressed between a teenager with headphones blasting music loud enough to hear, and a man reeking of cheap cologne and cigarette smoke, Angela sat with the umbrella balanced across her lap, water dripping from its edges onto her already damp pants. Outside the fogged window, the city blurred into gray and gold, brake lights and street lamps creating halos in the rain. But her mind stayed sharp on one image. Ethan pulling that second umbrella out of his bag like he'd known, like he'd planned. Like somewhere in his morning routine, coffee, shower, getting dressed, he'd looked at the weather forecast and thought about her, about whether she'd remember, about whether she'd need him. The bus lurched to a stop. Angela stood, umbrella in hand, and stepped out into the rain-soaked evening, still turning the question over in her mind. Why me? If someone you barely noticed suddenly revealed they'd been preparing for you all along, would you trust it or run from it? Hit that subscribe button to support us in crafting more stories like this one, because Angela's about to learn that sometimes the scariest thing isn't being seen. It's realizing you've been refusing to look back. Dakurban. Angela woke up Thursday morning with the navy umbrella leaning against her bedroom wall, still slightly damp from yesterday's rain. She stared at it while her coffee brewed, while she got dressed, while she checked her phone for the 14th time. The weather forecast predicted clear skies. No rain. No reason to bring an umbrella. She brought it anyway. On the bus, she held it across her lap the same way she had yesterday, and caught herself running her thumb along the curved handle. It was good quality, better than the cheap ones she usually bought from street vendors and promptly lost. This was the kind of umbrella someone kept. Someone who planned ahead. Someone who didn't treat their belongings like disposable props in a life lived at sprint speed. At the office, Angela took the elevator to the 4th floor, walked past the IT corridor, and slowed her steps without meaning to. Ethan's desk was visible through the glass partition. She could see his monitor, his organized desk with its neat stacks of papers, a coffee mug with a faded logo she couldn't make out. But he wasn't there. "He's in early meeting," a voice said behind her. Angela turned. David Chen stood there with 2 coffee cups in hand, grinning like he knew something she didn't. "Server migration. Won't be back until 10, probably." "Oh, I wasn't—" Angela stopped herself. "Thanks." David's grin widened. "Sure." She hurried to her own floor, cheeks warm, and tried to focus on work. Mr. Hamilton had already sent 3 emails before 8 a.m., each one more urgent than the last. Budget reconciliation, client reports, the quarterly review that somehow always fell on her shoulders, even though 3 other people in the department had the same job title. By 10 a.m., Angela had forgotten about the umbrella, forgotten about Ethan, forgotten about everything except the spreadsheet in front of her that refused to balance. It wasn't until lunch, until she was packing up to head to the plaza outside, that she remembered. The umbrella was still propped against her desk drawer, navy blue against institutional gray. She picked it up, meaning to take it with her, and that's when she saw it. A small yellow post-it note, stuck to the handle near the base where her hand would rest. Angela's breath caught. She hadn't noticed it yesterday, too distracted by rain and confusion and the strange warmth of unexpected kindness. She peeled the note off slowly, fingers trembling slightly, and read the neat handwriting. "You can keep it. I have others." 4 words, simple, direct, and somehow they unraveled something in her chest. I have others. How many umbrellas did he carry? How long had he been doing this? Had he noticed her pattern before yesterday, or was yesterday the first time? And if it wasn't the first time, how many times had he watched her stand at that glass door, bag empty, weighing whether to run through the rain? Angela looked toward the IT floor through the glass partition. Ethan was back at his desk now, headphones on, focused on his screen. He didn't look up. Didn't check to see if she'd found the note. She folded the post-it in half with careful precision, slipped it into her jacket pocket, and left the building with the navy umbrella still in her hand, even though the sky was clear and blue. On her lunch break, sitting on a bench in the plaza with a salad she wasn't hungry for, Angela pulled out her phone and typed a message to Maya. "Can we talk tonight?" Maya's response came immediately. "Everything okay?" Angela looked at the umbrella beside her, at the folded yellow note in her pocket. "Yeah, just something happened." "He gave you an umbrella?" Maya Torres set her coffee mug down with a little too much force, the ceramic clinking against the cafe table hard enough to make the barista glance over. Her brown eyes narrowed in that way Angela knew too well, protective, suspicious, ready to go to war on her behalf. "Yeah," Angela said, stirring her latte absently, watching the foam swirl and dissolve. "It was raining. I didn't have one." Again. And he just had a spare. Maya's tone was flat, skeptical. 2, actually. Angela took a sip, the coffee too hot, burning her tongue. He kept one and gave me the other. Maya leaned back in her chair, arms crossed over her navy button-down shirt, the gesture defensive and familiar. Angela, listen to yourself. A guy you barely talk to carries 2 umbrellas and gives you one with a cute little note saying you can keep it? Angela frowned. It wasn't cute. It was practical. Practical. Maya repeated the word like it was evidence in a trial. Babe, he's circling you. This is classic nice guy behavior. They do these little things, build up this debt in your head, and then one day they cash in. Remember when I gave you my umbrella? Remember when I was there for you? He's not... Angela started, but Maya cut her off. Men who help too much always want something. Maya's voice softened, but the edge remained, sharp and certain. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm saying you don't know him well enough to trust this yet. You don't know what he expects in return. Angela looked down at her cup. The foam had completely dissolved now, leaving only dark coffee with a slight sheen of milk on the surface. He's never asked me for anything, she said quietly. Yet, Maya replied, the single word heavy with meaning. He hasn't asked yet, but he will. They always do. You don't know that. I know enough. Maya reached across the table, covered Angela's hand with hers. Her fingers were warm, familiar, grounding. Look, I love you. You're my best friend. And I've watched you work yourself into the ground for people who don't deserve it. Your boss, your sister, your mother. Every single guy who's ever pretended to care. I don't want to see you get hurt by someone who's been planning this for who knows how long. Angela pulled her hand back gently. What if you're wrong? What if he's just... nice? Maya's expression softened with something close to pity. Honey, men aren't just nice to women they're not interested in. And if he is interested, he's been watching you long enough to know your patterns. That's not romantic. That's calculated. They finished their coffee in uncomfortable silence. Angela paid. She always paid. Another pattern she couldn't seem to break. And they walked to the subway together, their conversation drifting to safer topics. Work. The weather. A new series Maya was binge-watching. But as Angela rode the subway home that night, pressed against the door by evening rush-hour crowds, she couldn't stop thinking about Maya's words. Calculated. Debt. Circling you. That night, lying in bed staring at the ceiling, the navy umbrella leaning against her bedroom wall like a silent accusation, Angela's phone buzzed. Her younger sister, calling for the second time that week. She almost didn't answer. But guilt won, like it always did. Hey, Becca. Angie, did you get my messages? Her sister's voice was tight with stress. Mom's prescription ran out and the pharmacy won't refill without payment. Can you... I'll send it tomorrow. You said that last week. I got busy, Becca. I have a job. I have my own bills. I know, I'm sorry. It's just, you know how she gets. And I can't cover it this month. The car broke down again and... Angela closed her eyes. How much? Her sister named a figure that made Angela's stomach twist. She did the mental math. Rent, utilities, groceries, the credit card payment she'd been putting off. She could do it. She always could. She'd just eat cheaper meals for the next 2 weeks, skip the coffee shop, walk instead of taking the bus when possible. I'll transfer it tonight, Angela said, her voice hollow. Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver. Love you. Her sister hung up before Angela could respond. She stared at her phone screen, at the banking app she'd have to open, at the balance that never seemed to grow no matter how many extra hours she worked. I have others. Ethan's note echoed in her mind. What did it mean to have extras? To have enough that you could give something away without calculating the cost? Angela opened her banking app, transferred the money, and watched her balance drop into dangerous territory. Then she looked at the umbrella again, and something hard settled in her chest. Maybe Maya was right. Maybe Ethan was waiting to collect. Maybe this was just another transaction she'd foolishly thought was kindness. She couldn't afford to owe anyone anything else. Monday morning, Angela took the stairs to the 4th floor instead of the elevator. Her legs burned by the 3rd flight. She was out of shape, too many late nights at the office and skipped gym sessions, but the burn felt appropriate. Like penance. Like proof she could still do hard things alone. At her desk, she arranged her workspace with compulsive precision. Pens lined up parallel. Monitor adjusted to the perfect angle. The navy umbrella tucked deep in her bottom drawer, out of sight. She had a plan. Finish the quarterly report by Wednesday, avoid the IT corridor, eat lunch at her desk. Simple, sustainable, safe. Tuesday she succeeded. Worked through lunch, left at 7 p.m. when the office was half empty, took the stairs again even though her calves screamed in protest. Wednesday, her plan fell apart. "Angela, I need you in the conference room at 2, Mr. Hamilton said, appearing at her desk without preamble. IT presentation on the new system integration. You're taking notes." Her stomach dropped. "Can't someone else? You're the only one who understands both the budget implications and the technical requirements. 2 o'clock. Don't be late." He walked away before she could argue. At 1:58 p.m., Angela stood outside conference room B, laptop in hand, trying to steady her breathing. Maybe Ethan wouldn't be there. Maybe they'd send David, or one of the other IT analysts she didn't know well enough to feel complicated about. She opened the door. Ethan was setting up his laptop at the front of the room, connecting cables to the projector. He looked up when she entered, and their eyes met for a fraction of a second before Angela looked away, choosing a seat at the far end of the table. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hi." She opened her laptop, focused on the screen like it held the secrets of the universe. 3 other people filtered in: Mr. Hamilton, Sarah from accounting, Marcus from finance. The meeting started. Ethan presented slides about server migrations and cloud storage and security protocols, his voice calm and professional. And Angela took notes with mechanical precision, not looking at him, not letting herself wonder if he'd noticed she'd been avoiding him. But when the meeting ended and everyone else filed out, Angela's laptop decided to betray her. The screen froze, cursor locked mid-word, the spinning wheel of death mocking her attempts to save her notes. "No, no, no," she muttered, clicking frantically. "Want me to look at it?" She jumped. Ethan stood 3 feet away, hands in his pockets, expression neutral. "It's fine. I'll just..." "Angela." His voice was gentle. "I can fix it in 2 minutes." She wanted to refuse, wanted to insist she could solve it herself, reboot it, call the help desk, anything that didn't involve accepting another thing from him. But Mr. Hamilton wanted those notes by end of day, and she didn't have 2 hours to spend on IT troubleshooting. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you." Ethan pulled up a chair beside her, not too close, respecting her space, and held out his hand for the laptop. She passed it over, and he worked in silence, fingers moving across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. "It's a memory leak issue," he said after a moment. "Happens with this model. I can put in a ticket to get you a new one." "It's fine." "Angela, it's going to keep freezing. It'll crash eventually." "I said it's fine." Her voice came out sharper than she meant. Ethan's hand stilled on the keyboard. He didn't look at her. "Did I do something wrong?" The question hung in the air between them, quiet and sincere, and Angela felt something crack in her chest. "No," she whispered. "You didn't do anything wrong. Then why are you avoiding me?" She opened her mouth, closed it. "I'm not. You took the stairs Monday and Tuesday. You didn't come to the break room all week. When I texted you about the meeting earlier, you didn't respond." He finally looked at her, and his eyes were tired. "If the umbrella thing made you uncomfortable, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to... It's not that." Angela's throat tightened. I don't know how to do this." Do what? Owe someone something. Ethan's expression softened with understanding. You don't owe me anything. That's what people always say, until they want to collect. The words came out harder than she intended, carrying years of transactions disguised as generosity. Family members who helped out of love and then held it over her head. Boyfriends who were kind until they weren't. Colleagues who offered assistance and then expected her to cover for them endlessly. Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he saved her document, closed the laptop, and slid it back across the table. I gave you an umbrella because it was raining and you needed one, he said. That's it. No contract, no debt. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine. But don't avoid me because you think I'm waiting to cash in. I'm not. He stood, packed his laptop, and walked to the door. Ethan, Angela said. He stopped, looked back. I'm sorry. You don't have to be sorry. You just have to decide if you believe me. He left, and Angela sat alone in the empty conference room, staring at her laptop screen, and felt the weight of her own fear crushing her lungs. Padro. Friday morning, the weather forecast predicted clear skies. By 2 p.m., the sky had turned the color of bruises, dark purple-gray clouds rolling in from the west like an invading army. Angela was in a client call when the first drops hit the windows. Soft, almost gentle, the kind of rain that tricks you into thinking it might stay manageable. By 3 p.m., it was a deluge. She finished the call at 3:30, exhausted from an hour of explaining budget overruns to a client who didn't understand why quality work costs money. Her head throbbed. Her shoulders were knotted with tension. She needed to go home, take a shower, sleep for 12 hours. She checked her bag. Both umbrellas were there, navy and burgundy, but she'd been so certain the weather would hold that she'd left them in her bottom drawer that morning. Of course. Angela walked to the IT corridor, intending to ask someone, anyone, if they had an extra. David was at his desk, headphones on, but Ethan's chair was empty. His monitor was dark. His desk was unusually clean, like he'd left in a hurry. He's not here, David said, pulling one earphone out. What? Ethan took the day off, some kind of family thing. Angela's stomach dropped. Oh, okay, thanks. She walked back to her floor, ignoring the tightness in her chest. It didn't matter. She didn't need him. She'd handled rain before. She'd handle it again. At 4:15 p.m., after waiting another 30 minutes hoping the rain would ease, Angela gave up. She pushed through the lobby doors and ran. The rain was brutal, cold, driving, the kind that soaks through clothes in seconds and finds every gap in your defenses. Her jacket was useless. Her sneakers squelched with water by the first crosswalk. Her hair plastered to her face, obscuring her vision. A car sped past, tires hitting a deep puddle, and a wave of filthy street water crashed over her legs up to her knees. Angela didn't stop running. She made it to the bus stop, lungs burning, clothes clinging to her body, shivering so hard her jaw ached. The bus was late. Of course it was. She stood under the inadequate plastic shelter with 6 other soaked, miserable people, arms wrapped around herself, trying to generate warmth. When the bus finally came, she found a seat near the back and sat in a spreading puddle of her own making, watching water drip from her hair onto her lap. He's not there. He won't always be there. This is what real life looks like. The realization settled over her like the cold. Inevitable, uncomfortable, true. At home, Angela stripped off her soaked clothes in the bathroom, left them in a heap on the tile floor, and stood under a hot shower until her skin turned pink and the water ran cold. But even wrapped in her warmest pajamas, buried under 2 blankets, she couldn't stop shaking. Not from cold. From the terrifying recognition that somewhere in the last week, she'd started expecting him, started counting on him, started believing that maybe, just maybe, someone could show up for her without an agenda. And the moment she'd let herself believe it, he wasn't there. Angela looked at the navy umbrella leaning against her wall, the one she'd deliberately left at the office as some kind of test, and started to cry. not delicate tears. Ugly, gasping sobs that came from somewhere deep and raw, the place where she kept all the accumulated exhaustion of being strong for everyone, of never asking for help, of holding herself together with spite and stubbornness, and the belief that needing someone made you weak. She cried until she couldn't breathe, until her ribs ached, until there was nothing left. And then she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and whispered to the empty room, "What's wrong with me?" Angela called in sick Monday. It wasn't entirely a lie. She had a headache, her throat was raw from Friday's crying, and she couldn't face the office. Couldn't face the possibility of seeing Ethan and having to pretend everything was fine. She spent the day in bed, alternating between sleep and staring at her phone. Maya texted twice, asking if she was okay. Her sister called about something Angela immediately forgot. Mr. Hamilton sent an email about the quarterly report that Angela read 3 times without comprehending a single word. At 2 p.m., her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Hey, it's David from IT. Ethan asked me to check if you're okay. He said you weren't answering his messages." Angela scrolled up. 3 texts from Ethan that she hadn't noticed, sent Saturday morning. "Hey, I heard it rained pretty bad Friday. Hope you got home okay. If you need anything, let me know. Sorry I wasn't there." The last message hit her like a physical blow. Sorry I wasn't there. He was apologizing for not being at work on his day off, for not being available to rescue her from a rainstorm, for not fulfilling a responsibility he'd never agreed to take on. Angela's hands shook as she typed a response to David. "I'm fine, just a cold. Tell him I said thanks." She deleted it, typed again. "I'm okay, taking a sick day. Send." Then, before she could overthink it, she opened Ethan's message thread and typed, "I'm sorry. For everything. Can we talk?" The response came 2 minutes later. "Of course. Tomorrow? Lunch?" "Yeah. The plaza. 12:30? I'll be there." Angela set her phone down, pulled the blankets over her head, and tried to figure out what she was going to say. Dennery. Tuesday morning, Angela woke up with her stomach in knots. She changed outfits 3 times, too casual, too formal, trying too hard, before settling on her usual work clothes. Beige pants, white sneakers, the bomber jacket that had survived Friday's rainstorm. In her bag, she put both umbrellas, even though the forecast predicted sun. At 12:30 p.m., she sat on a bench in the plaza outside the building, hands clasped in her lap, watching office workers scatter across the small park with their lunch orders and quick breaks. Ethan appeared at 12:32, carrying a paper bag from the sandwich shop across the street. He sat on the opposite end of the bench without asking, maintaining careful distance. "Hey," he said. "Hey." They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Ethan pulled a sandwich from the bag, unwrapped it halfway. Angela's salad sat unopened on her lap. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "You don't have to. Please let me finish." Angela took a breath. "I've been avoiding you because I was scared. My best friend said you were circling me, that men who help too much always want something, and I believed her, because that's been my experience. People help and then they collect, and I've spent my whole life trying not to owe anyone anything." Ethan set his sandwich down, but he didn't interrupt. "And then Friday happened," Angela continued, "and it rained, and you weren't there, and I got soaked, and I realized—" Her voice caught. "I realized I'd started expecting you, counting on you, and that terrified me more than anything." "Why?" "Because expecting people means they can disappoint you. It means you've given them power over your day, your mood, your life. And I can't—" She looked down at her hands. "I don't know how to do that." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, his expression thoughtful. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentle. "My mom raised me alone," he said. "My dad left when I was 8. No explanation, no goodbye, just gone. And I watched her pretend she didn't need anyone. She worked 2 jobs, never asked for help, never admitted when things were hard. And you know what? She was miserable. Angela looked at him. When I was in high school, she got sick. Nothing serious, just the flu. But she couldn't work, and she couldn't pay rent. Her sister, my aunt, found out and helped her. And my mom cried. Not because she was sick, but because she'd finally had to admit she couldn't do everything alone. Ethan picked up his sandwich but didn't eat it, just held it like he needed something to do with his hands. She told me later that was the moment she realized being strong isn't refusing help, he said. It's knowing when to accept it. It's trusting that sometimes people help because they care, not because they want something. Angela's throat was tight. What if I don't know how to trust that? You start small. Ethan looked at her, and his eyes were steady, certain. You let someone carry an umbrella for you, and then maybe you let them sit with you when you're tired. You let them send you a text asking if you're okay. And eventually, if you want, you let them stay. And if I mess it up, if I keep testing you, pushing you away, then I'll keep showing up until you believe I'm not going anywhere. A tear slipped down Angela's cheek. She wiped it quickly, embarrassed. I kept your umbrella. Ethan smiled, soft and real. I know. I left it at the office on Friday. On purpose, I think, to prove I didn't need it. Did it work? No. Angela laughed, watery and broken. I got completely soaked and spent the whole weekend crying. I'm sorry I wasn't there. Stop apologizing. You took a day off. You're allowed to have a life. I know, but I wish I'd been there anyway. Angela looked at him, at the quiet certainty in his expression, the patience that didn't waver, the care that didn't demand anything in return, and made a decision. Why do you do this? She asked. Why me? Ethan set his sandwich down again, met her eyes. I noticed you last October. You were in the lobby, rain pouring outside, and you were on your phone, pacing, clearly upset about something, and then you just ran into the rain without an umbrella, got completely soaked. And I remember thinking, she's going to get sick. And then 2 weeks later, same thing, and I started paying attention. Angela's breath caught. That was almost a year ago. I know. You've been carrying spare umbrellas for a year? Not at first. At first I just noticed. And then winter came and you were still doing it, still getting caught in the rain. And I thought, I could help. So I started carrying an extra. Just in case. Angela didn't have words. That's crazy. Maybe. Ethan's smile turned rueful. David definitely thinks so, but I didn't see it as crazy. I saw someone who takes care of everyone else and forgets to take care of herself. And I wanted to be someone who took care of you, even if you never noticed. Angela felt something shift in her chest, something that had been locked tight for years finally loosening. I notice now. I know. They sat in silence for a moment, the sun warm on their faces, the sounds of the city humming around them. I bought my own umbrella, Angela said. Burgundy. Nice one. Wooden handle. That's good. But I want to keep yours too, the blue one, if that's okay. Ethan's smile widened. It's yours. You don't have to ask permission. And maybe... Angela took a breath. Maybe we could have dinner sometime. Like actual dinner, not just lunch in the plaza. I'd really like that. Okay. Angela felt herself smile, genuine and warm. Okay. They finished lunch together, and when Angela went back to work, she carried both umbrellas in her bag and felt lighter than she had in months. By Wednesday afternoon, the office had noticed. Angela was refilling her water bottle at the break room when 2 colleagues from accounting walked in, their conversation cutting off abruptly when they saw her. Hey, Angela, one of them said. Simone, who'd worked there for 3 years and had never spoken to Angela beyond polite hallway greetings. Hey. So, you and Ethan Park? Angela's hand slipped, water overflowing her bottle. She turned off the cooler, grabbed paper towels. What about us? Simone exchanged a glance with her coworker, both of them smiling like they knew a secret. You guys had lunch yesterday, in the plaza. Looked pretty intense. We're friends. Sure. The other woman, Rebecca, Rachel, grinned. Friends who stare at each other like that. Angela felt heat rise in her cheeks. We were just talking. Uh-huh. Well, good for you. Ethan's a nice guy, and God knows you deserve someone who's actually decent. They left, still smiling, and Angela stood alone in the break room wondering when her private life had become office gossip. At her desk, she found a message from Maya. Lunch Friday? Need to talk. Angela sighed, typed back. Sure, usual place. Perfect. See you then. Thursday morning, Mr. Hamilton called Angela into his office. Her stomach clenched. He only called people in for serious conversations, usually involving either termination or massive project dumps. But when she entered, his expression was uncharacteristically soft. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from his desk. Angela sat, hands folded in her lap, bracing for impact. I've been thinking about our conversation a few weeks ago, Mr. Hamilton began. When you pushed back on the last-minute deadline. I'm sorry if I was disrespectful. You weren't. He leaned back in his chair, removed his glasses, rubbed the bridge of his nose. You were honest, and I needed to hear it. Angela blinked, stunned. Mr. Hamilton didn't apologize, didn't acknowledge fault. I've been taking advantage of your competence, he continued, giving you work that should be distributed across the team because I know you'll get it done. That's not fair, and it's not sustainable. Thank you for saying that. I'm redistributing some of your projects. Chen and Morrison will be taking on the client reports. I'm also approving your request for 2 personal days next month. You've earned them. Angela felt something unlock in her chest. Thank you. And Angela? Mr. Hamilton put his glasses back on, met her eyes. You're good at your job, one of the best coordinators I've had, but you're not a machine. Take care of yourself. She left his office in a daze, walked back to her desk, and sat staring at her monitor for 5 full minutes before she could process what had just happened. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Coffee break? I'm buying. Angela smiled, grabbed her phone, and headed to the break room. Friday at lunch, Angela met Maya at their usual cafe. Maya was already there, stirring sugar into her coffee with mechanical precision, her expression serious. Hey, Angela said, sliding into the chair across from her. Hey. Maya didn't smile. So, Ethan? Angela's stomach tightened. Yeah. I was wrong. Angela blinked. What? Maya set her spoon down, looked directly at Angela. I was wrong about him, about the umbrellas, about his intentions, about all of it. Maya. Let me finish. Maya took a breath. I've been watching you this week. You're different. Lighter. You're smiling at your phone. You actually left work on time yesterday. And I realized I almost ruined something real for you because I'm so stuck in my own trauma that I can't see past it. Angela reached across the table, squeezed her hand. You were trying to protect me. I was projecting onto you. Maya's voice was thick. My ex-husband destroyed my ability to trust anyone, and instead of dealing with that, I've been treating every man like they're him. Including Ethan, who by all accounts has been nothing but respectful and patient, and exactly what you deserve. You didn't know. I should have trusted you, your judgment, your instincts. Maya squeezed back. I'm sorry. For planting those doubts. For making you question something good. Angela felt tears prick her eyes. I love you. You know that, right? I know. I love you too. Which is why I'm telling you. Don't let my damage keep you from being happy. Maya's smile was sad but genuine. If Ethan's been carrying spare umbrellas for a year, he's not going anywhere, and you should let him stay. They talked for another hour, about Maya's ex, about the divorce Angela had only heard pieces of, about the ways fear disguises itself as wisdom. When they finally left, Angela felt something settle in her chest. She had her best friend's blessing, And more than that, she had permission to trust herself. The following Tuesday, Ethan took Angela to a small Korean restaurant in Bom Retiro, the kind of place with paper menus and family photos on the walls and the smell of garlic and sesame oil thick in the air. My mom used to bring me here when I was a kid, Ethan said as they sat down at a table by the window. After parent-teacher conferences, dentist appointments, any excuse really. It's perfect, Angela said, and meant it. Ethan ordered for them galbi, japchae, kimchi, soft tofu stew, and showed her how to wrap the meat in lettuce with gochujang and garlic. This is amazing, Angela said, mouth full, manners forgotten. Ethan grinned. My mom would adopt you immediately if she heard you say that. Are you close? Yeah. She calls every Sunday, asks about work, reminds me to eat vegetables, tells me about her book club drama. Standard mom stuff. Angela felt a pang of something, not quite jealousy, but recognition of an absence. That sounds nice. What about your family? Angela set down her lettuce wrap, suddenly less hungry. Complicated. My mom's... She's sick. Has been for years. My sister takes care of her mostly, but I handle the finances. Send money every month. More when things get bad. That's a lot of responsibility. It's just what you do, you know? She's my mom. But who takes care of you? The question was simple, sincere, and it cracked something open in Angela's chest. I do, she said quietly. I've always had to. Ethan reached across the table, covered her hand with his. You don't have to anymore, not alone anyway. Angela turned her hand over, laced her fingers through his. I'm still learning how to believe that. I know. I'll wait. They talked until the restaurant started preparing to close, the owner giving them gentle looks that said, we need to clean up. Ethan paid despite Angela's protests, and they walked to the bus stop together, hands linked, breath visible in the cold night air. Thank you, Angela said. For tonight, for dinner, for everything. You don't have to keep thanking me. I know, but I want to. Ethan smiled, squeezed her hand. Then you're welcome. When the bus came, Angela hesitated, then leaned in and kissed him. Soft, brief, a promise of more to come. Good night, Ethan. Good night, Angela. She found a seat by the window, watched him stand there until the bus pulled away, and felt something she'd almost forgotten. Hope. That Saturday, Angela's phone rang while she was doing laundry. Her sister's name flashed on the screen. For once, Angela didn't hesitate. She answered. Hey, Becca. Angie. Her sister's voice was small, uncertain. Do you have a minute? Yeah, what's up? I wanted to apologize. Angela nearly dropped the phone. For what? For always calling when I need something. For never asking how you are. For treating you like an ATM instead of my sister. Becca took a shaky breath. Mom told me you've been covering her medications for 6 months. And her physical therapy. And I didn't even know because I've been so focused on my own problems that I haven't paid attention to yours. Angela sat down on her bed, heart hammering. Becca, you've been taking care of all of us for so long, and I don't think I've ever said thank you, or asked if you're okay, or done anything except make demands. Her sister's voice broke. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Angela closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. It's okay. It's not. But I'm going to do better. I got a second job, part-time, but it'll help. I'm going to start covering some of Mom's bills so you don't have to carry everything. You don't have to. I do. And Angie? Mom told me something else. What? She said you sounded happy last time she talked to you. Lighter. And I realized I don't even know what's going on in your life because I've never asked. Becca paused. So I'm asking now. Are you happy? Angela thought about Ethan. About the umbrellas. The dinners. The way he looked at her like she was worth waiting for. Yeah, she said softly. I think I am. Good. You deserve it. And I want to hear about it. Really hear about it. Not just ask and then talk about myself. They spent an hour on the phone. A real conversation. The kind they hadn't had since they were kids. When they finally hung up, Angela sat in the quiet of her apartment and felt something she hadn't felt in years. Like maybe she didn't have to carry everything alone. Like maybe she had a family who could learn to carry some of the weight, too. Monday morning, David cornered Ethan by the coffee machine, grinning like he'd won a bet. "So," David said, pouring sugar into his mug with excessive enthusiasm. "You and Angela are official now?" Ethan didn't look up from his coffee. "We're seeing each other." "That's not what I asked." "David, come on, man. I've been watching this unfold for months. I've earned the right to some details." David leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You finally asked her out? She said yes, and now you're doing the whole relationship thing. I need to know if my patient's advice worked." Ethan smiled despite himself. "Your patient's advice was stop being a coward and just tell her." "Exactly. And you ignored me and waited even longer. So did it work? The whole carry umbrellas until she notices strategy?" "It wasn't a strategy. I just wanted to help." "Right, help. With romantic undertones." David took a sip of his coffee. "But seriously, I'm happy for you. Angela seems great, and you've been walking around with this stupid smile for 2 weeks. I don't have a stupid smile. You literally smiled at your monitor yesterday, at code. Nobody smiles at code unless they're thinking about someone." Ethan shook his head, but he was smiling again. "Fine. Yeah, I'm happy." "Good. You deserve it." David's expression turned more serious. "And hey, I wanted to say thanks." "For what?" "For showing me it's possible. To wait for someone, to be patient, to actually do the work instead of just hoping things happen." David pulled out his phone, showed Ethan a text conversation. "I finally asked out Rachel from HR. We have coffee tomorrow." Ethan's eyebrows rose. "Rachel? You've been crushing on her for 2 years." "I know. And I was too scared to do anything about it. But watching you with Angela, I figured if you could carry spare umbrellas for a year, I could send one text. I'm proud of you, man. Thanks. Now let's hope I don't screw it up." They walked back to their desks together, and Ethan found himself thinking about how patterns ripple, how one act of consistency could inspire someone else to take a risk, how courage sometimes looked like showing up with an umbrella and waiting. 3 weeks later, Ethan's mother called on a Wednesday evening. "Ethan, I'm coming to the city this weekend. I want to meet her." Ethan, who had been making dinner, nearly dropped his knife. "Meet who?" "Don't play games with your Iyama, the umbrella girl, Angela." "How do you even—" "You've mentioned her 5 times in the last 2 phone calls, and you sound happy. So I want to meet the woman who makes my son smile like that." Ethan closed his eyes, trying to remember if he'd mentioned Angela that many times. He probably had. "Mom, we've only been dating for a few weeks. It might be too soon." "Do you think it's too soon?" He thought about Angela, about the way she laughed at his terrible jokes, the way she'd started texting him random observations throughout the day, the way she'd kept both umbrellas in her bag even on sunny days like she was holding on to proof that someone cared. "No," he said quietly, "but I don't want to scare her." "Then tell her the truth. Tell her your mother is visiting and wants to meet her, and that there's no pressure, but it would make you happy if she came to lunch. That simple?" "Ethan, when did you start overthinking things?" "Yes, that simple." So on Thursday morning, Ethan found Angela at her desk during her coffee break. "Hey, can I ask you something?" Angela looked up from her monitor, smiled. "Sure. My mom is coming to visit this weekend, Saturday, and she wants to meet you." Angela's eyes widened. "Meet me?" "Yeah, I told her about us, not details, just that we're seeing each other. And she wants to have lunch, all of us. No pressure, and if it's too soon, I completely understand, but I'd love to." Angela interrupted. Ethan blinked. Really? Yeah, I'm nervous, but I want to meet her. She raised you, so she must be pretty amazing. Ethan felt warmth spread through his chest. Saturday at noon? There's a restaurant she likes in Libertad. I'll be there. Saturday arrived with clear skies and Angela's nerves at an all-time high. She changed outfits 4 times, settled on a simple navy dress and white sneakers, casual but respectful, and arrived at the restaurant 10 minutes early. Ethan was already there, waiting outside, and when he saw her, his face lit up in a way that made her heart skip. You look beautiful, he said. I'm terrified. She's going to love you. Mrs. Park arrived 5 minutes later, a small woman with black hair streaked with gray, kind eyes, and a warm smile that reminded Angela immediately of Ethan. Angela, she said, taking Angela's hands in hers. It's so good to meet you. Ethan has told me so much. It's wonderful to meet you too, Mrs. Park. Please, call me Yoonji. They went inside, ordered food, and within 10 minutes, Angela's nerves had evaporated. Yoonji was warm, funny, asking questions that felt genuine rather than interrogating. She wanted to know about Angela's work, her family, what she liked to read, whether she'd tried making kimchi. I haven't, Angela admitted. But I'd love to learn. Yoonji's face brightened. Then you must come over sometime. I'll teach you. It's easier than people think. Over bibimbap and japchae, Yoonji told stories about young Ethan, how he used to organize his toys by color, how he'd taught himself to code at 12, how he'd always been the kid who noticed when someone needed help. When he was in high school, Yoonji said, there was a new student. Korean, didn't speak much Portuguese. Ethan spent his lunch breaks for 2 months teaching him the language. Didn't ask for anything. Just helped. Angela glanced at Ethan, who looked embarrassed. Mom. What? It's true. You've always been like this, seeing what people need and showing up. Yoonji looked at Angela, her expression soft. I'm glad he found someone who sees him too. Angela felt her throat tighten. He makes it easy. After lunch, Yoonji hugged Angela goodbye. A real hug, warm and tight, and whispered, Take care of my son, and let him take care of you. I will, Angela whispered back. When Yoonji left, Angela and Ethan walked through Libertad's Sunday market, browsing stalls selling Japanese sweets and handmade crafts. Your mom is incredible, Angela said. She likes you. How do you know? She hugged you. She doesn't hug people she just met unless she really likes them. Angela smiled, squeezed his hand. I like her too, and I want to learn to make kimchi. She'll hold you to that. Good. They walked in comfortable silence, and Angela realized something that had been building for weeks. She was falling in love with him, with his patience, his consistency, the way he saw her not as a project to fix, but as a person worth knowing. She wasn't ready to say it yet, but she felt it. And for now, that was enough. A month later, São Paulo was hit by the worst storm of the season. It started as a normal Thursday, clear morning, mild afternoon. But by 3 p.m., the sky had turned black, and the weather alerts started flooding everyone's phones. Severe thunderstorm warning, seek shelter, avoid travel. At 3:30, the power went out. The office plunged into darkness for 3 seconds before emergency lighting kicked in, dim and yellow, casting strange shadows across empty desks. Half the staff had already left, spooked by the weather warnings. Mr. Hamilton sent an email telling everyone to go home safely. Angela was packing her bag when her phone buzzed. Ethan, you still here? Yeah, about to leave. Meet me at the lobby. Don't go alone. When Angela got downstairs, Ethan was waiting with his black backpack and 2 umbrellas, one black, one navy blue. He handed her the navy one without a word. Angela laughed. You know I have my own now, right? 2, actually. I know, but old habits. He smiled. Plus, this one's stronger. Better for storms. They pushed through the glass doors together, and the wind immediately tried to rip the umbrellas from their hands. Rain came down in sheets, not drops, solid walls of water that soaked through clothes in seconds despite the umbrellas. Thunder cracked overhead, loud enough to make Angela jump. "Stay close," Ethan shouted over the wind. They made it half a block before Angela's umbrella inverted, the wind catching it like a sail. Ethan grabbed her arm, pulled her under his umbrella, and they huddled together, pressed close, trying to make progress toward the bus stop. But when they got there, the digital sign was dark. No buses. The storm had shut down half the routes. "My apartment is 2 blocks from here," Ethan said. "We can wait out the worst of it there." Angela nodded, too cold and wet to argue. They ran the 2 blocks, sharing his umbrella, dodging debris and deep puddles. By the time they reached Ethan's building, they were both soaked, shivering, laughing at the absurdity of it. In his apartment, small, tidy, books organized on shelves, and a kitchen that smelled like coffee, Ethan handed Angela a towel and a dry shirt. "Bathroom's there. I'll make tea." Angela changed out of her wet clothes, towel-dried her hair, and came back to find Ethan in the kitchen, 2 mugs of tea steaming on the counter. He'd changed too, wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt, his hair damp and messy. Outside, thunder rolled and rain battered the windows. "Some storm," Angela said, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. "Yeah." Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her. "You okay?" "Yeah, thanks for the rescue." "Always." They moved to the couch, sitting close, listening to the storm rage outside. Angela set her mug down, turned to face him. "Can I tell you something?" "Always. I've spent my whole life believing that needing people made me weak, that asking for help was admitting failure, that being strong meant doing everything alone." She took a breath. "And then you showed up with your umbrellas and your patience, and your ridiculous consistency, and you didn't ask me to be different. You just showed me I didn't have to be alone anymore." Ethan set his mug down too, reached for her hand. "You were never weak, Angela. You were surviving. But you don't have to just survive anymore." "I know." She squeezed his hand. "Because I have you. You have me." Angela leaned in, kissed him, and this time it wasn't brief or tentative. It was sure and deep and full of everything she'd been too scared to say. When they pulled apart, Ethan rested his forehead against hers. "I love you." The words hung in the air between them, simple and true. "I love you too," Angela whispered. Outside, the storm continued. But inside, wrapped in borrowed clothes and each other's warmth, Angela felt safer than she had in years. 2 months later, Angela stood in Mr. Hamilton's office, resignation letter in hand. "I'm giving my 2 weeks' notice," she said. Mr. Hamilton looked up from his computer, surprise flickering across his face. "What? Why?" "I got an offer from another company. Better pay, better hours, actual work-life balance. I'm taking it." "Angela, if this is about workload, we can discuss. It's not just workload. It's about recognizing my worth. And I've realized I'm worth more than killing myself for a place that sees me as a workhorse instead of a person." Mr. Hamilton was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded, something like respect in his expression. "I understand. You'll be hard to replace." "I know." She walked out of his office feeling lighter than she had in years. That evening, she met Ethan at their favorite Korean restaurant to celebrate. "I'm proud of you," he said, raising his glass of soju. "I'm proud of me too." Angela clinked her glass against his. "It's scary, but it's right. You're going to do amazing things." "We're going to do amazing things." Ethan smiled, reached across the table for her hand. "Yeah, we are." Shatanri. 6 months later, Angela stood in her new apartment, bigger, brighter, in a neighborhood she actually wanted to live in, unpacking boxes with Ethan's help. "Where do you want this?" Ethan held up a framed photo of Angela and Maya. "Bedroom, I think. On the dresser." He disappeared into the other room, and Angela continued unpacking kitchen supplies. Her new job was everything she'd hoped, challenging but fair, with a boss who actually valued her input, and colleagues who didn't expect her to carry everyone's workload. Her sister called twice a week now, real conversations about real things. Her mother's health had stabilized. Maya was dating someone, a woman from her book club who made her laugh in a way Angela hadn't heard in years. And Ethan was constant, present. The person she came home to, the person who still carried spare umbrellas, even though she never forgot hers anymore. The person who loved her, not despite her sharp edges, but because of them. "Hey," Ethan said, coming back into the living room. "Found something." He held up the navy blue umbrella, the one he'd given her that first rainy Thursday over a year ago. Angela smiled. "I was wondering where that ended up. You're still keeping it?" "Of course. It's important. It's just an umbrella." "No." Angela took it from him, ran her fingers over the handle. "It's proof that someone saw me when I thought I was invisible. It's proof that patience exists, that consistency matters, that love doesn't have to be loud to be real." Ethan pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "I'd carry 1,000 umbrellas for you." "I know, but I've got my own now, so we can just carry them together." Together. I like the sound of that. They finished unpacking as the sun set, painting the apartment in gold and amber light, and Angela thought about all the versions of herself she'd been. The one who ran through rain alone, the one who believed needing help was weakness, the one who tested people to see when they'd leave. She wasn't that person anymore. She was someone who'd learned that accepting care wasn't a debt. It was reciprocity. It was trust. It was love. And sometimes it started with something as simple as an umbrella. Nayan. 1 year after that first rainy Thursday, Angela and Ethan stood in Ibirapuera Park, watching storm clouds gather on the horizon. "Looks like rain," Angela observed. "Good thing we're prepared." Ethan pulled 2 umbrellas from his backpack, one black, one navy blue. Angela laughed, pulled her burgundy umbrella from her own bag. "I've got mine too." So we have 3 umbrellas between us. Excessive, really. Absolutely ridiculous. Perfect. The first drops started falling, soft and cold. They opened their umbrellas, all 3 of them, a small forest of protection, and walked together through the park, laughing at the absurdity and the beauty of it. Because that's what love looked like, Angela had learned. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Just showing up, being consistent, carrying umbrellas even when the forecast says sun, choosing each other, over and over, in small moments that add up to a lifetime. Later that night, curled up on Angela's couch with Ethan beside her and rain drumming against the windows, Angela thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, exhausted, isolated, convinced that strength meant doing everything alone. She'd been so wrong. Real strength was letting someone in, was trusting that some people stay, was building a life where you didn't have to carry everything yourself because you had someone willing to share the weight. "Hey," Ethan said softly. "What are you thinking about?" Angela looked at him, at the man who'd noticed her pattern of getting caught in the rain, who'd carried spare umbrellas for months before she even knew his name, who'd waited with infinite patience for her to be ready to see him. "I'm thinking about umbrellas," she said. Ethan smiled. "Of course you are. And about how sometimes the smallest acts of care are the ones that change everything." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Angela leaned in, kissed him gently. "Thank you for carrying extras, for seeing me, for staying. Thank you for letting me." Outside, the storm intensified, but inside they were warm and dry and together. And in the corner of Angela's apartment, 3 umbrellas stood in a neat row by the door. Navy blue, burgundy, and black, ready for whatever weather came next. Because they would face it together. Always prepared. Always together. Always.